when my mind, ooh.
25 years ago, I seem to have became impregnated to write the story of Black Green. I was one of those who went to the very first Million Man March, October 16th, 1995. That march was, for me, the most amazing event, the most wonderful, the most awesome experience that I've had in a setting like that unfortunately disappointed me. You may say, why? Because to have that many Black men together in the same place at the very same time was a major, major deal. To have all of those brilliant-minded, extraordinary, very gifted and experienced speakers was just a real treat. But yet, I came home feeling that we missed the bullseye. I felt that way because we came home without a plan. We too quickly fell back into the same mode that we were in before we ever went to the march. So we lost our edge, we lost our momentum. I personally would like for all of us to have came home with a solid, realistic, rational, doable plan that anybody could do regardless to what level of society you're on. And I feel that that's where we missed the bullseye. I will always be grateful for that experience, but until more is done more effectively, in my mind, in my soul, in my spirit, there will always be an incomplete. So I intend to do something about it, and I'm very proud to present to you part one of Black Green.
The reason that we are seeing racial inequity in this country is that it was put into place on purpose. And I'm not just talking about slavery beginning 400 years ago. I'm talking about policy decisions that happened within living memory that excluded Black Americans from everything from fully being able to access the GI Bill to labor protections. These have consequences. There is a much bigger picture here, and it has to do with inheritance. It has to do with the wealth gap and the fact that if you are Black in this country as a consequence of systemic racism, you start out with less. You know, in the same way that if you save $1, it compounds over the years and becomes more and more. The same is true of $1 stolen, and that has happened to Black Americans through generations.
I feel that we are in the midst of a most critical period in our nation, and the economic problem is probably the most serious problem confronting the Negro community. And I might say the most serious problem confronting poor people generally. And I don't want to be narrow about this, talking only about the Black poor in our country, because I must be concerned about Puerto Ricans who are poor, Mexican Americans, American Indians, and Appalachian whites.
In the 12th round, he was semi-unconscious. He was right on his feet. He was out and ready to fall, and everybody was saying, kill him, you got him, you got him. And I just didn't feel right, you know, two Black men standing there killing each other just for dominating a white audience. And, you know, to be paid $300,000 next day, and Uncle Sam take about 60% of it before I get it.
The most dangerous place for Black people to live is in white people's imagination.
And then understand that we will never survive as a group until we get into communities and not neighborhoods. A community is, I control the police, the banks, the schools, the firefighters, and I control the flow of the money.
And today the Black man, according to the government economist, has spending power of $20 billion per year.
If you haven't got a role model in your house, you should fall on your knees and pray to God, because something is wrong.
Yes.
And so I would say to young folks, it's not about alcohol, but it's hard for me to say that to you when a 5-year-old got to reach past mama's beer and papa's wine to get some mayonnaise.
To educate our people into the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your money becomes richer and richer. The community out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer.
Because when you are running for something, you can say a lot of things. But when you sit in the seat and you feel the energy of electricity putting something on your backside, the forces that surround power is always the real power.
White immigrants can come to this country 50 years ago with nickels and dimes and no education, and come here and pool their little nickels and dimes and no education, and set up little stores, develop these stores into larger stores, develop this into an industry which creates job opportunities.
We must also realize that the problem of an economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power.
The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was put on the books after, so we were freed pretty much December of 1865. And instead of getting what some historians believe, reciprocity, 40 acres and a mule, we got this law. We got this law, and basically it says we will have fair contracting, economic inclusion in government contracting and in commercial contracting. Because they knew that the newly freed slaves, African Americans, were not going to be treated freely in commercial contracting and government contracting, and it was essential for us to be integrated into the financial fiber of America. So this law was put on the books 153 years ago to make sure we had an economic pathway for economic inclusion.
You know, fellas, it's really amazing how we see things in life so very differently. So for the sake of us being here today, I'd like for each one of us to shed some perspective on what we see when we look out of this window here.
We would have to be out of our minds to be in the condition that we are in today, and to be dealing with almost a total reversal of reality that we deal with today, where those who own least, who were given least by nature, are in control of the most, and those who were given most have the least. This can only occur when the mind of those who have least have been twisted and turned backwards, and their consciousness falsified.
Black folk are in worse shape today than we were 50 years ago because we don't know our story. We have allowed others to tell us who we are. Dr. Clark also said that history is the compass where people find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells you who you were and where you were. History tells you who you are and where you are. But the most important role of history is to tell the people where they still must go and who they still must become.
We marvel about some athlete earning 10 or 15 million a year. Well, if that's the case, then that athlete must be worth to his owners $100 million, $150 million a year. We don't ask ourselves what happens to those other hundreds of millions of dollars.
There's a lot of things that has to change on this planet Earth that only we can change. And until we embrace the fact that we are as powerful as we are as beings, we're going to continue to make the mistakes and allow the mistakes to be made, from our children to our adults to our elderly to whatever situation you want to talk about.
You say, I have yet to this day ever heard or seen not one president, not one candidate for public office ever get up and say, here's what I'm gonna do for black folk. That violates the entire premise of politics. Politics is a process that decides who's gonna get what benefits out of life.
And yet we do not recognize that the American music industry is probably the second largest export industry that this country has. We think of music as purely entertainment, but music is a commodity. Black music sells about 60% of the music sold in the world.
So fellas, you know America's a big mess. 2020 is really not gonna be a joke, you know what I'm saying? And, we looking at circumstances where, our children's future's at stake, and we cannot afford to take that for granted. Now, for the longest, we've been listening to people talk all this talk about problems, and it's time out for a whole bunch of this rhetoric and a whole bunch of this identifying and what problems are. It's time for somebody to actually have solutions, and that's what we are about here today. We are about solutions. So we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. We're gonna surprise a lot of people because we're gonna have a plan that is going to change the whole game when it comes to economic development and betterment and power. For our own communities and our families, we're gonna have to be about it.
I see clearly what it is. We're still dealing with a whole lot of hypocrisy.
Yeah, but that's on both sides of the track. See, I come from a neighborhood where it's really sad to see the circumstances that good people are dealing with. To this day, as we speak, most of those people are still poor and can't do anything about their circumstances.
The thing that gets me is my children complain about the same thing that I have, that my parents had, that my grandparents had. It's just generation after generation. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better. The only thing that has changed is the game itself.
Yeah, but the game is still getting worse for a lot of us. And the crazy thing is, people are running around pretending like nothing's even wrong. That's what's crazy. And all these communities, instead of coming together and working together for progress, it actually seems like they pulling apart. They actually going backwards. The whole thing is crazy. It's madness. And we are a whole lot smarter than that.
But you know what gets me about our people? Collectively, we are not getting wiser. While the reality is, we're still dealing with the same crap that has crippled us and fragmented us through American history.
Well, at least, should I say, not for everybody. You see, I guarantee you, we in this room, we reflect a whole lot of people out there who see and understand and feel the same way that we feel about what we're talking about. And I predict that many of those people are going to appreciate hearing what we have to say, and they're going to appreciate it in a big way. Now, the fact of the matter is this: black people all over the nation, they understand and they see the very same things that we talk about. In fact, we all talk about it. I don't care where you go, what city or state, we're all saying the very same thing. You see, we are a very intelligent people, and that is no doubt. But you see, most of us, we are afraid to act. We're afraid to do anything about our situation. A lot of us are just plain old skeptical, and we just don't know what to do. We don't know which way to go. We're all confused and turned around, and what this person said and what that person said and what this leader supposedly said, what that leader supposedly said. So we are in complete disarray. And it's unfortunate. And then at the same time, there are some very valid reasons why some people are skeptical and afraid to act on the very things that they suffer from and complain about.
Let's keep it more real than that. Some of us are just playing cop-outs and cowards. My dad would sing this song by James Brown, talking loud and saying nothing. You want to talk about real? Now that's real. That's actually one of our biggest issues though. Just a bunch of damn talk. Not to mention, we humble when we shouldn't be, and not humble when we should be.
See, the problem is, for far too long, we as a people haven't really had any real bona fide leaders. I mean, these people that they putting on TV in front of us, what are they doing for us? They coming up short. Not to mention, we didn't choose them to be our leader. I think they choose these people because these people are invested into the system. They got something to lose. Whatever they got in the system is more important than representing the people like they should. And I don't know what the system got against them. Could be a Me Too charge. I don't know. Could be they own a lot of stocks and bonds.
Or they have something to hide and they're afraid to shake things up. A lot of people have a lot to risk. There's a lot at stake, especially when you have a family involved. And when you're going up against the government or the law, it can be monsters. You don't want to cross it.
Either way you look at it, at the end of every moment, nothing from nothing equals nothing. And what gets me is that being black is on the clock. But our people ain't paying attention to that. And even if they were paying attention to it, they're not understanding what it really means for our future.
See, that's why the reason we're in this room, fellas, is so vital. See, we gonna have to change the whole game. The whole game. But we gotta remember this endeavor is not for everybody. This endeavor is only for like-minded people. The folks who don't like our soup, they are afraid of our soup, or they are better off hating our soup, or they just don't want to touch it, don't want to taste it. That's fine, because we have to focus on people who relate to what we're talking about and who can appreciate what we're talking about and who can appreciate the fact that finally somebody is not just talking, but they get ready to walk in it and show us how to do and how to create a core, a base of like-minded people who are going to make impactful difference on this whole game that's completely insane. It has been and will continue to. So I just want y'all to understand that this ain't for everybody. It's just not. And see, when you're talking about leveraging money and leveraging power, man, that's a giant of a thing. That is not something that we can stand to even slightly underestimate. That's a real giant.
Not trying to be pessimistic or anything, but how do you propose we do this? I mean, we're talking about the impossible dream. We're talking about a very multi-complex situation full of unique circumstances and that are quite individualistic and clustered. Nobody would expect that there's an actual resolve to this kind of dilemma, especially our own people.
And especially not our adversaries. But they know that we are more than capable of dismantling this system. See, they the ones that mastermind and planned this whole thing that got our people trapped. They studied the science of the emotions and everything that we go through as a people. And they mastermind this to trap us. But they know that we can beat this system. They even planned who was going to be doing the suffering, which is us.
But they don't even think a black man even got the balls to challenge this beast. Let alone even think we're smart enough to figure out all the intricate wiring.
But you see, that's because they think that we are afraid of our own demise. You see, they figured we'd be better off to go down with the likes of Dr. Frankenstein, King Kong, some of these imaginary creatures that really serve as a perspective that we cannot afford to ignore.
Well, that's because, like you said, we got to preserve our families and any type of economical circumstances that we have, or the little bit we do have, and try to hold on to.
Which would not be the case if we didn't allow them to control our economic leverage.
Thus, a master plan is an absolute must. Fellas, what we are getting ready to do, I promise you, this is going to be monumental. Seriously. Okay, see, we're going to get a lot of people to look at the very same thing at the very same time. A lot of people are not just going to be talking, they're going to be paying attention to our details. At the very least, we're going to accomplish that. People are going to start talking amongst themselves. They're going to be discussing some of the points that we're bringing out. And then this gradual process, they're going to see what we ultimately intend to accomplish. So we have got to be on point about everything that we talk about. And I promise you, our results are going to be quite profound. They're going to be quite profound. A lot of people who were skeptical at the beginning, once they see how well we're organized and how people are coming aboard, a lot more people are going to come aboard. And I really believe that a lot of people are going to need to. And we're going to see more people be more brave in ways than they were before.
Well, somebody got to do it. Might as well be us.
So fellas, we are about to take on a real undertaking here, okay? Make no mistake about it. There's absolutely nothing that we can afford to take for granted. But in order for us to really be about this, we have got to make sure that we have a bond that cannot be broken. We got to be 110 with each other, okay? Now, we're gonna have a motto. And what I present to each one of you is this as our motto. No excuses, only results, okay? And only the results that serve our agenda. That's it. So we got to make sure that we trust each other, that we do not cross each other, and that we do not allow an outside source to penetrate us and interfere with our process. They have to be able to see that we are just that bonded together, and we're just that organized, and we're just that smart. No excuses, only results. Now fellas, listen, I am not the smartest one in this room, and neither is either one of you. So we've got to make sure that we set the kind of example that shows other people that we truly respect each other. And I firmly believe that you cannot truly respect somebody if you do not at first appreciate them, because it is within that space that we actually will become as one. Let's get just a little bit more to the heart of the matter here. I will reiterate again and again that our agenda is not for everybody, only like-minded people. But we got to understand something. We cannot accomplish anything unless we address the power source's wallet. If we can't put that into the right perspective, then there's no point in us talking any further. What we want to do is try to make sure everybody understand that what we are about is economic balance and economic power. We're not about racism. This is not about racism. A lot of people are going to try to make it a racism, but this is not about racism. This is about that green. This is about our community. This is about people who are less fortunate and being taken advantage of and have no economic leverage or power to have their voices or their positions respected by the powers that be.
Yeah, but before we do all that, we actually have to take a look at the true history of America, aka the corporation, and the way it's structured against the people. Now, we may not want to say it's racism, but that's what they base everything off of. So we got to deal with that.
I would agree with you on that. That's a very valid point.
Yeah, see, we have to look deep into the history of America, because we're not just dealing with coincidence. We're dealing with a mastermind system set in place to own and control the people. Now, this system that they built masterfully has functioned well, and it's going to continue to function well, whether we are successful or even if we fail.
Exactly. But we have to dissect the actual conditions of America as blacks in America and going forward. Then place the most imperative things into perspective. This is the only way our base will understand that this is not about racism, but what we say it's about, which is leveraging dollars and cents.
Fellas, I don't think there's no way around the issue of racism, because it's reemerging and planning to set us back in time with the intent to reduce or completely take away all the progress that we have made this far. In some cases, it's already happened. From where I see it, the race card is going to be prevalent for us to deal with. Perhaps our biggest hurdle.
Yes, because it's the Willie Lynch syndrome that already works in us to perfection. The thing that gets me is how it works so well that it's almost on autopilot. They don't even have to try. This system is designed so well that it's going to keep us into separation and disarray.
True. That's because most of our people don't know how not to be their own worst enemy.
Speaking of our own worst enemy, I hope that I'm wrong. I really like to be wrong, but I really believe that the black churches are going to come against us in a profound way. You see, the thing about many of them, I know that it's not all of them, but many of them, you see, they're locked into the Bible and biblical principles, whereas we're dealing with reality. And if you really listen to what almost every one of them is saying, they will say the same things that we're saying. They will complain about the same things that we complain about. They actually care about some of the very things that we care about. But when it comes down to action, they're going to hide behind the Bible as opposed to standing up on the front line and doing action, okay? And we cannot afford to underestimate the black churches because they have always been a pillar to our communities. Had it not been for them, you know, I don't know what would have happened to our communities a long time ago. I wish that we have the opportunity to have realistic, solid, supportive dialogue with black churches, but I do kind of anticipate that we're going to have some real issues with too many of our black churches.
But We all know that has a hell of a lot to do with the leaders of the churches, their egos, their money trails, their lifestyles. If they don't get the slice of pizza that they want, they're gonna create chaos intentionally, and we know that.
Yeah, which equates to them continually operating their control and dominance over their members. They're gonna keep controlling them and mastering their minds, because most of those members, they okay with being literal sheep. They are followers and not leaders.
That's all while they bank all of their millions of dollars in banks that they don't own and will never own. You see what I'm saying? And so the power source is going to protect this money. That's what we got to look at. They're going to protect this money. You understand? And that money tends to always lead where? To Wall Street. Wall Street. So we're going to have to address Wall Street, which is precisely what could jeopardize our livelihoods, put our lives in danger. The power source is going to protect their money at all costs. And they're going to come down hard on us. They're going to try to brainwash people to say that we are bad. They're going to try to turn our base against us. They're going to be the first ones to recognize that this is a monumental movement. So as we commit or consider going forward, back to this bond that we talked about, we've got to make sure that we have a solid bond together. So, I ask you guys again, are you sure you want to go down this road?
I'm all in.
I'm in. I've been waiting a long time for something like this to happen. I'm in as in can be.
So fellas, yeah, I will be recognized as the head of this snake, so to speak, the head of this movement, the head of this organization. But I want to make something perfectly clear. This is not about me. An organization is about the movement. Leaders come and go. So I would like for you all to understand that. I will serve to my fullest ability and capacity. If something should happen to me, this movement will continue, because once people see that it's real and that it's working, they're going to believe in it, and there will be no shutting it off. There will just be a matter of the next person stepping up and continuing to lead the charge completely undiluted and consistent with all the principles, all the passion, all the emotion, all the intellect that we created. In getting this movement started, it must be consistent. And when it is that, it doesn't matter who is the leader. It only matters that the movement continues to serve the people and continues to make progress. So, if there's anybody here that wants to leave, but doesn't feel right, has second thoughts, now is the time to leave. No questions asked. But if you stay, you will be expected to be a man of your word, a man of your integrity, a man of your character. The integrity and the character of the man that's in this room, the four of us. No excuses, only results. perfect example of little becoming so much more.
We are the perfect example of little becoming so much more.
For the mind is not a terrible thing to waste.
For the mind is not a terrible thing to waste.
But it is a terrible thing to waste a mind.
But it is a terrible thing to waste a mind.
I'm Florida's own Barry S. McLeod, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for taking a few minutes just to watch part 1 of Black Green the film. I hope you enjoyed the film. And if you're saying right now, well, Barry, the film was cool and everything, I get where you're coming from, but you didn't give us any solutions, then I'd like for you to know that that was simply by design. What I hope to accomplish to start things off with this film project that I'm doing here is just to create some interest in the sequel and to establish hopefully a base for the sequel, a base of like-minded people, okay? I simply wanted to engage you, and hopefully deal with and put some things in perspective in a way that you would appreciate. What we're going to do with the sequel of Black Green is we're going to touch on all the essential things that's going to change the playing field when it comes down to economic balance, economic leverage, economic empowerment, and all the wonderful things that it can accomplish in every community, regardless of where you live, okay? So I have a VIP family email list, and I like to keep you in the loop of everything that I'm doing going forward, okay? So if you'd like to be in the know of everything that I'm doing, only thing you have to do is just send me an email at blackgreenfilm@gmail.com. In the subject box, just say I'm in. I'm also on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And it would be great if you would take a few minutes to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Black Green Film. Now, if you do these things, you will be the first to know of everything that we're doing. I promise you I will not bombard you with spam and notifications and stuff that don't have nothing to do with this film. And I really don't have time for that. So all I really want to do is just keep you in the loop of what's going on. I like to hear from you. I like to get your comments. I like to get some feedback, what you thought about part 1 and what you would like to see dealt with in the sequel. Now, the thing about the sequel, what I'm going to really enjoy is that it's not going to be a round table type of a thing. It's going to be an art form of like what we normally see with regular movies, dramatic films. But it's going to deal with the real and the seriousness of the subject matter that we're dealing with in part 1. So it's going to be a nice challenge for me as a filmmaker and a writer and director to deal with these type of pertinent issues in the art form of a traditional film. I want to thank you again for taking the time to watch Black Green. I also invite you to visit my website at barrysmcleod.com. So be on the lookout for the sequel to Black Green. Once again, I'm Florida's own Barry S. McLeod.